Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Shanghai Super Brand Mall Arena, where we have a packed house here to watch Invictus Gaming taking on JDG. And with RNG moving to Beijing, Invictus Gaming is one of the few teams left that is actually based in Shanghai, so a ton of the fans are here today to support them.
So you have kind of like two big organizations left in Shanghai, and it's Edward Gaming and it's Invictus Gaming. You heard when IG took the stage, the crowd going nuts. They are definitely kind of the hometown favorites, if you will, even though JD Gaming are still based for now in Shanghai. But they're IG are the real representatives.
Don't worry, JD Gaming have the boost of their manager every single match for us, screen. So no matter who the fans are supporting, they'll always have people cheering for them and make sure they can get the crowd rallied to their side.
Yeah, and then reminder, by 2020, we will continue to expand outwards into other traveling circuits and other venues. It's not just stopping with these 6 teams yet. It's going to continue to expand, as well as the LPL itself moving to 20 teams.
Yeah, more teams, as well as more offline and home venues for the LPL. That means that eventually a lot of teams are going to be locked into these conferences, and we won't see these swaps like we saw with Rogue Warriors, as well as Availability or TRP, as well as Vici. But let's get straight into Champions League for game number 2. Invictus Gaming already 1-0 up against JDG.
And we have back-to-back blue side. So it is decided by teams. Again, it's double round robin, and they get the choice of which side they're going to do. So Invictus Gaming, back-to-back blue side, and sticking with exactly the same bands. Yeah, Graves, Talia, and Aurelia. And what I wanted to mention is that IG were known as kind of the red side rookie team last split. Now, obviously, with the meta and kind of the state that it's in right now, it definitely changes the strategy that you're playing, you know, the counter pick versus the priority pick. But normally, it was the diversity, the versatility of Invictus Gaming's deep champion pools that had them thrive on red side, because you could give them, you could try to pinch them any which way you wanted, but they always had some sort of counter pick because they played everything.
Also with the respect to the signature picks from a couple of their players. I mean, the Shy, you see a lot of J spans target out against him, and look at this match alone. 3 AD carries being targeted against Jackie Love. One of the few that could be played in the bottom lane to a good extent is going to be Ezreal or Kog'Maw.
I will say that the Lucian can definitely flex towards Rookie. He's had his share of the Lucian, as well as going up into the top lane, but again, IG with that priority pick of the Flex Camille. We saw Ning grab it last time for the jungle, but Duke and Ning can both share this champion.
But Zoe does get locked in as the first pick for JDS. Still a very strong mid laner in the current patch.
Not just a strong mid laner. I was talking to Raz, and I'm 100% in alignment with him. I think that she is the best blind pickable mid laner in this current meta. And again, this meta is just so volatile. We don't really know how it's going to settle down, but poke champions are incredibly powerful. The games are snowballing so quickly. Everything's ending between 20 and 25 minutes, and Zoe has great objective control around things like monster objectives and structure objectives with her long-range poke and assassination ability.
Which we start to see teams fight over more, especially with the changes to Scuttle Crab and the experience in the jungle. Scuttle Crab is incredibly important to fight over early in the match to pick up as much experience as possibly can. JD2 lock in Rakan as their support of choice. Vladimir goes over to Invictus Gaming.
Now we're actually seeing JD kind of return to some normalcy right now. You have a traditional support, and since he was picked with Zoe, it's not going to be, you know, the Rakan mid lane showing up that we heard some whispers about closer to MSI. And I do want to take a moment to kind of recognize some of the mid-split changes that JD have gone through, namely in their coaching position. Coach Ohm, formerly of Vici Gaming, moved over into Team WE, is now the primary coach for JD Gaming. We saw him, you know, backstage with the players when they were talking on the analyst desk, and you can already kind of see that fingerprint that he's left with the team. A very different draft in game number 1, now going a bit more standard in game number 2, but JD Gaming still growing not just on the field, but behind the scenes, picking up and redefining their coaching staff.
And I'm also really curious to see how the teams in the LPL adapt to the meta as we move further into the first few weeks of the LPL, because we already saw the kitchen sink in game number 1. Now going back to a little bit of a normal draft, Zoe, Rakan, Zaya, this seems like something out of week 2 of the LPL last split.
I feel we had the everything bagel, and now we're back to like the plain bagel. You know, your standard coffee morning. You got your Zaya, your Rakan, the lovers duo down there, Morgana, Vladimir. Still a lot of flex picks that Invictus Gaming are working with, but otherwise nothing really stepping out as the be-all, end-all of weird.
Yeah, but we say that for now. It could be Vladimir going into the bottom lane again, this time for Invictus Gaming, unless they decide to pick up another 8 carry for Jackie Love in the bottom lane.
I have a feeling it's going to go up into Duke's hands. Rookie, yes, he can play the Vladimir, but his tendencies are he never really grabbed hold of the champion. It wasn't one of his most played, and it fits a lot better in Duke's MO and play style.
Certainly does. The last 2 bans coming out from JDG, they take away Caitlyn. That was a very popular pairing with Morgana towards the end of last split of the LPL. Yasuo still being banned out against Rookie, one of his signature champions. as well as Xin Zhao being taken away by IG.
I'm actually really disappointed not to see a Caitlyn. She's kind of cropping up a little bit as you're checking in on the ADC pool and how it's doing on 8-11, but the differences are in the itemization. As Clement was talking about on the analyst desk, the crit items, they've been just smashed. Everything's been rearranged. They're now more expensive. It's harder to fit into those build paths, and so you would think that that would completely kill Caitlyn. But she's kind of like budget Jhin in a sense, that she's going for the Storm Razors and then the rapid fire cannon and just looking for that one pop. Just in range, boom, headshot, walks away.
Well, Jhin is the carry that we thought would be popular with this type of meta, but we haven't seen it just yet. Bear in mind, we've only seen one game so far in the LPL itself. Locking in Olaf is going to be JDG, most likely in the jungle for Clid.
And you cover up the patch, and this basically looks like a composition that we would see actually from Invictus Gaming last split. Olaf was one of their preferred favorite jungles, so they have a lot of experience facing it. And right now, JD just have a lot of threat on their mid and bot lane position. The best thing about Olaf in the LPL is his ability to gank the bottom lane. And especially when he's set up with someone like Rakan, there's a lot of kill threat there, which is why you see the immediate respect from Jackie Love. Not only is Ezreal still the strongest ADC that people are gravitating on this patch, but he's also one of the safest. So he sees the Olaf, he sees the Rakan, he says, nah, not today. Black Shield and Arcane Shift, please.
It's going to allow him to escape from those early ganks as well as any early pressure that could come out of JD, but we'll have to see if at level 6, when Olaf picks up his Ragnarok, that's when he starts to go really aggressive against these champions with good gap closes and good disengage abilities like Ezreal can chase him down. On was the final pick for Invictus Gaming.
And I have been corrected. It is going to be rookies Vladimir instead of Duke's with that Ornn coming in. You talked about it last game. Duke much more known for his tank play with Invictus Gaming, whereas the Shy was the carry. And we've got another tank because it's Dr. Mundo. And Fish, I know you are a personal fan of Mundo.
I love Dr. Mundo up in the top lane. He has now gotten 100% regeneration with his ultimate at rank number 3, but throughout all levels it has been buffed, and he's been terrorizing the top side of the map. There hasn't been a tank that can go toe-to-toe against him efficiently, especially with his effective health damage and wave clear defects. What else do you want from this man? He is a madman.
The thing about Mundo is that he's really a stat gate champion, that once his numbers get tuned to a certain point, the nature of his kit is just so oppressive. But specifically in this composition, and specifically with Zoe, because when I look at JD, the core for this is poke. He can throw some axes, but it's really about the Zoe poke and throwing the repeated abilities. And the thing about Mundo is that with his kit, he never has to leave Summoner's Rift if he doesn't want to. He can just sit there, he can regen health, he can throw his cleavers, and when you have a champion like Zoe who wants to sit around towers, constantly been throwing things out, she needs that big, meaty tank to stay with her, prolong that engagement, and then slowly chip away these structures.
One of the traditional counters against Dr. Mundo was late game scaling AD carries who could chunk out his health throughout a team fight. Going up against an Ezreal, that doesn't seem like something that Invictus Gaming can do, so we'll have to see how Zoom does in the top side of the map. Furthermore, we've got Clement who can break down Dr. Mundo after this match. He is a big Mundo fanatic.
Oi, I'm going in. I love Mundo. I was studying him in the Demacia cap. I'm glad that you brought up the Ezreal, because I think that is a big part of it. Mundo's never going to be the champion where you're going to blind pick right now in the meta unless they just make his numbers absolutely nuts. But if Kai'Sa and Ezreal are still kind of the go-to ADCs that we've seen from IG with the likes of Lucian and Draven being banned, Mundo is a very viable option and starts to climb up the tier list because they can't itemize very effectively into the Grievous Wounds.
No, they can't. And on top of that, Dr. Mundo has historically done well against magic damage, something which both Kai'Sa as well as Ezreal currently build towards with a couple of items, especially with the double-tier Ezreal being made popular at MSI. So I have to keep track with Zoom top center map. Duke is going back into a comfortable champion of Ornn. Shouldn't have the best of matchups in the Dr. Mundo in the top side of the map, but we'll have to see how he fares. He should be much more comfortable on a tank-based champion, though.
I mean, hilariously, they're both just going to sit up there. They're an unmovable object versus an unmovable object. They're just going to sit, farm up, buy. It'll be fun.
Yeah, no unstoppable force, just unmovable objects on the top side of the map. But let's get on to Summoner's Rift. Game number 2. Invictus Gaming taking on JDG.
The bellable toll for IG. Come on, fans. Jing Dong?
And now TSM. No.
Oh, the
it's RNG instead.
This is the world that we're in now. The TSM chants have died.
Disappeared. We
For
used to
Royal
get
Never
them.
Give Up.
We used to get them occasionally after the two teams chanted. I may have instigated it a couple of times as well.
I'm completely fine with this world. But quickly, Keystone. So last game we saw an Electrocute Vladimir. This time around it's the Predator Vladimir. Again, kind of following up on the conversation that I had in the first game, FLICKR. I peeked in on his op.gg. I was curious what he was playing, what he was doing, and he was experimenting specifically with Vladimir. He's tried Conquerors, Predator, as well as Electrocute. He seems to favor more so the Electrocute, and also changing up the itemization. It's no longer just the Reverie Rush, going for more of either the Proto Belt and specifically the Spellbinders.
And Electrocute is what we saw from Loken in the last match when he played Vladimir in the bottom lane. So curious to see how Predator's going to go for Rookie. That was starting to become a little bit more popular and seems to make sense, especially now that Shirelles isn't that item that Vladimir's go for. It doesn't give him that big boost of movement speed that he relied on previously. Checking in with the bottom lane, Ezreal as well as Morgana going up against the Lovers duo in the bottom lane. Luma as well as Loken should have strong level 1 presence. In fact, going aggressive against Jacula, forcing him to flash away, and he's down below 100 hit points.
And take notes, it was because Morgana showed the Dark Soil, so using the W there. So as soon as you knew that Morgana didn't have the black Dark Binding and couldn't stop Mao and Loken, they immediately just sprinted at JackieLove. So a huge miscommunication between Balon and JackieLove. I don't know what they expected to happen at the level 1 there, but I'm so happy that Loken and Mao punished them for their arrogance.
They're trying to jump in, flash forward. Loken wants to charge underneath this turret, but they botched the execution. They don't get enough damage, and Luma doesn't get the knock-up he needs to take down JackieLove. He has teleport, should be just fine getting back into this lane.
Now hopefully he learns his mistake and he's not so careless in lane phase again. Hate it when professional players get away from that. I'm glad that Loken and Mao punished that.
But it's going to be 2 summoner spells traded for 3. Loken still has his teleport available, and JackieLove will be stuck underneath this turret for a while, but he doesn't lose too much from his early game mistakes.
No, and it's just opening up again the jungle. Last time JD were in this position where they lost control of their side lanes. Suddenly their jungle was getting invaded. Ning was blitzing into Klid's face at every single opportunity. And yeah, Klid's on the top side of the map clearing his Krugs right now, but it's a much better game already that Xayah and Rakan already have that control over the bot lane, and it should continue.
We can check in with Vladimir's other runes he's been picked up here. I'm going to butcher the name, but I believe it's Nimbus Cloak, the new sorcery rune that he's picked up. When he uses his ultimate, he gets a burst of movement speed. That's going to help out with not being able to pick up Shirelles anymore.
And you can already kind of see what his rune setup is trying to gear for him. It's the same type of style. You want to be able that you can blitz into these fights very quickly, lay down your damage, hit a lot of targets.
And what you were talking about earlier is that he does need to do that a little bit earlier into the match, but it seems like with these 2 fairly traditional team compositions, he can sit back and scale the way that Vladimir is used to, but it's curious because it is Rookie on Vladimir, not Duke picking up in the top lane.
It kind of eliminates one of the variables that we had about this meta, and where you don't just have the weird champions on, you know, these single item power spikes like the Storm Razors and just watching everything explode, but you still have kind of the other variables of the jungle changes in particular. You know, the fact that Scuttle Crab is still worth, I think, like 2,000% more than it ever has before, so a lot of these other resources, Baron having the changes done to it, so while, yes, I agree there's the possibility that maybe we see a more traditional, you know, 8.8 style of game where things are slower, there's still kind of these other factors in the jungle and the monster objectives that we need to keep our eye on.
But besides the early aggression in the bottom lane, we haven't seen too much aggression from either team. Yakao is still pushing in against Rookie, trying to keep him underneath this turret. Top lane's just been a farm fest between Duke as well as Zoom. And jungle is just clearing their side of the map. We've seen both Scuttle Crabs go down nice and early, but no fights around Scuttle Crab this early into the match.
Yeah, pretty much we've just kind of divided the map. Now that said, now that Scuttle Crab has both been cleared, it means it'll have a random respawn. If you haven't played the new jungle, that's what happens. It has a timer, 2 minutes pops up, you clear both of them, and then suddenly it picks what side of the map it's going to spawn on as bot lane.
Very good damage going out against Loken. They get a redemption as well from Yaka in the mid lane, but there's Klid going for that bottom lane gank you were talking about. Balan's too far forward, and first blood gets picked up by JD Gaming.
And Balan and JackieLove are just all sorts of out of it right now in terms of their laning phase. The fact that they were that far forward without the significant warding coverage up into that lane, especially with the speed that Klid has. Now, that said, even if Olaf hadn't shown up, he was probably going to be dead or at least burn the flash. Balan smartly saving his flash because Olaf did show up, recognized that he was 100% going to die no matter what, and retained the summoner spell.
JD finally capitalize on the aggression they had very early into the match in that bottom lane. It is a Xayah being picked up, a carry that we didn't quite expect to be played on this current patch. Was known as a hyperscaling AD carry, relied on Essence Reaper as well, which has been changed significantly as well.
I think it's also not just the itemization changes and how that impacts Xayah, but also the idea that she's still very lane lane dominant, especially in tandem with Rakan. So I think JD Gaming, again, they went backstage, they recognized what happened in game number 1. We lost control of our side lanes. You know, we couldn't compete in this lane kingdom that Invictus Gaming liked to play. So let's just fix it. Let's just go back to the bread and butter, lovers duo. We've got the push advantage because of the combined steroids between these champions. There's no way we'll lose control of the wave. And they immediately punished level 1 and then punished again. And this is just not a look that we usually see from JackeyLove and Baolan. They're not considered the strongest bot lane in the LPL, but they usually don't get kicked around by Loken.
From time to time, they are a little bit hyper-aggressive over your light. That's normally against the likes of someone like Uzi, not so much Loken, but Loken on this champion, it is a scaling champion. It's something that Loken was known for in JD's late run into playoffs. We'll have to keep track to see what he can do. For now, he does have a good item advantage. BF Sword being picked up against just the tier of JackeyLove. No Sheen being completed by Ezreal just yet either.
Again, you're just being so careful with your word choice. That is a massive item disadvantage to JackeyLove. No battle stats on tier, and he's going to have to give up every single contested wave, which is now transferring into this jungle pressure. Clid's like, I've got the BF Sword, I've got the wave. Guess what? I've got your red buff.
Yeah, trying to do what Invictus Gaming did to his jungle the last match. He takes red buff away from Ning, hits level 6 as well, so Ragnarok is available for Olaf.
And that's so much more punishing because now that there's less experience in the jungle, those buffs mean more, and then if you lose control of your river, you're unable to slingshot back in and get hold of the Scuttle Crab. So we'll keep our eye on the experience difference between Ning and Clid. Right now, both level 6, but if JackeyLove and Baolan continue to just give away the bottom side of the map, that can really start impacting Ning.
Which, if you do take a look at your mini-map, that seems to be where they traded sides of the map. Ning did take down Scuttle Crab, the first one to spawn randomly, whereas Clid used that time to work with his bottom lane push in and pick up that red buff for his team. But we will have to keep track of that experience. Ning is slightly behind, but has hit level 6 himself.
So we talked about kind of this this idea of Lane Kingdom for Invictus Gaming. A lot of our international fans probably tuning in for the first time. We're not competing with anything right now. We just had the MSI victory from RNG and might be curious about JD Gaming, kind of what their play style is. Again, we've talked repeatedly how they're a very young team in the LPL, not just in kind of their members, but also as an organization itself. And this split for them is really not just rebuilding, but frankly building what their reputation is. They're a very clean, kind of fundamental-based team. A lot of it does center around their mid laner Yagao, one of our newer stars, Chinese mid laner coming into the league, but they haven't really defined themselves in any sort of special characteristic or gimmick that a lot of our younger teams come into. They're just a very clean, stable, standard League of Legends playing team, and it's now a question of, with the experience of playing longer in the league, what are their true skill ceiling?
I mean, the key thing that we pick out about JD all the time is the synergy between their mid laner as well as the jungle. Yakao as well as Clid, it always looks good. They sometimes have those unique strategies that they pull out. But that's about it. We haven't seen too much else from JD, and they do swap up their playstyle from time to time. We saw Loken going towards a hyper carry. He went aggressive towards players as well, was able to help JD take down their rivals as Suning and beat them to the playoff race last month.
They remind me a little bit of Edward Gaming Light in that it's just kind of about the play setup. If you give them a lot of time, they're smart about reading the map. They can do some clever things with the Rift Herald about how they trade objectives. If you kind of force the tempo on them, because again, if our little baby teams are Suning and JD, Suning are much more of kind of like the baby Invictus Gaming. They're a bit more scrappier. They'll kind of go punch for punch with you. JD, they like to slow it down. They like to, organize their things, get it all in a row, and then execute on the play.
But they've got a little bit of the Dignitas factor as well. Please stay
as
far away.
Dignitas factor.
Stay as far away from Barrow Buff as you possibly can, JD, because that wasn't good for you last split.
Yeah, JD Gaming are the worst Baron team in the LPL. The amount of games that we've seen them lose over Baron is just incomparable.
I'll put it this way. I mean, they've had steals. They've had some great steals go up against them. Good smite battles go up against them. Mako has stolen Baron from JD with Winter's Bite on Braum.
Sometimes it just happens.
Sometimes.
Sometimes you die to Baron, and then you die to Rift Herald, and then you die in the bot lane. I mean, Raz knows that.
But not like 4 to 5 times in a week. Raz is about to run over here, so let's... I
love you, Raz.
Someone get up here and make sure that Raz isn't trying to attack this casting table. Meanwhile, we have Ning trying to wait in the wings, see if he can collapse onto Yakao. No ganks going down the bottom lane just yet, but aggressive plays in the bottom lane. JackeyLove's going to get locked down. No Arcade Chef not available just yet, but Loken pulls back the feathers, picks up a kill in the bottom lane. Meanwhile, in the mid lane, that gank did go through. Baolan collapse, gets the Dark Binding, picks up that kill for IG.
And you're starting to see, again, some of that youth, not just in JD Gaming, but also in JackeyLove, one of our superstars coming into the league, also very young. Knew that his support was going for a bit of a cheeky roam, maybe looking at Rookie's lane, stepped way too far forward and just got blown up by Mao.
And he didn't have the best of players for Invictus Gaming. We talked about how with the Shine not playing for IG, with their clear built playstyle. Jackie Love's aggressiveness was exposed in the bottom lane, and he got chunked down time and time again. He said that he's going to rebuild, he's going to take that as a learning from that playoff, but so far still making those same mistakes. Me on the mid lane, that was just a clean game coming out from IG.
Yeah, the observer there really sparing as Balan walks by and says, "Oh me, boys." The fadeaway Dark Binding.
Just takes it. You know, he just wanted to kill. He thought it was Spike.
They went for the classy observer, or replay, as opposed to just watching Ezreal get blasted bottom lane.
But during that replay, we did see IG pick up Rift Herald for their team. Clid moves down towards the Dragon Pit, gets a Mountain Dragon for JD. The gold is still dead even 11 minutes into this match, not as snowbally as we saw from game 1.
And frankly, it's a trade-up, and it's not just a trade-up in terms of Rift Herald for Mountain Dragon, but particularly in what happened in the mid lane. Yes, Rookie didn't get the kill, but they burned the flash on Zoe, and Camille's ultimate is going to be up far before Zoe's flash is, so Yagao knows that the next time that cooldown is available, he has a massive target on his head. So suddenly you see JD pouring all of their resources around this mid lane.
They've got so many people moving towards the red side of the jungle. Zoom, we saw he was up against a Banner of Command earlier. He had the minion dematerialize to deal with that nice and quick. So teleport is available for JD to move down to this bottom if they want to pour even more resources. In fact, Duke, he's trying to move down the river to get into this fight if one does take place. But IG do retake the red side of the jungle. Red buff is going to be secured for Ning.
And a lot of that power is frankly lost because Yagao doesn't have his flash. Yeah, they wanted to try to force the issue because, again, they still have control over the bottom lane, possibly, but they feel that Invictus Gaming, they had good back timings right now. You saw that the Ornn, like you were saying, kind of disappeared from the top side of the map, and don't press the issue, which is very different than what we saw in game number 1 when it came to that dragon fight. JD were like, let's just roll the dice and see how it turns out. Invictus Gaming challenged them, they lost. So already learning some of the lessons from game 1 and continuing to evolve in game 2.
But a much slower paced game in game number 2. As you mentioned, yes, they're evolving and learning and trying to adapt to the opposite team's playstyles, but it's not something we quite expected moving into this meta. We expected very fast early games, very fast mid games like we saw in the last match, and very early finishes before 30 minutes. Seeing that these two teams, they're very comfortable with sitting back and scaling for the moment.
And it goes to show the strength of Invictus Gaming, the fact that they could play both styles, whereas frankly JD really failed in game number 1 with trying to use their gimmick style. So I like the fact that they're going back to kind of comfort, still taking the series very seriously, but also you're against IG. Chances are this series was going to be an uphill battle anyway.
They have looked good so far in game number 2. They tried to put up a fight and had some unorthodox strategies. Game 1 didn't work out for them, going back to the drawing board, changing things up. Whereas IG now going to try and push for a mid lane outer turret. Duke as well as Ning are collapsing into this mid lane. Rift Herald has spawned, going to chunk away at this turret with a full health charge, taking down fairly low. Ning gets hit by the Sleepy Trouble Bubble, and is not able to continue with this push any further forward, but they do get good damage onto the structure.
And it's also a good reaction from Loken and Mao. Invictus Gaming being very cautious. Yes, they pulled Duke to see if they could try to force the issue, and I have no doubt that if Rakan and Xayah hadn't started rotating, that they possibly would have felt comfortable. Let's hold on.
Good night, Ning. Takes some damage. Ignite is sticking. Hextech protocol goes in, but cleared! Ragnarok! Thor brings down the lightning, gets a kill for himself, and Rookie is suddenly caught as well. Vitamin used the Sanguine Paw, but he's not going to get away. Double kill being picked up by Clid.
And JD Gaming just kind of setting the trap and letting Invictus Gaming walk face first into it. So very aggro, especially when they didn't have their ADC. And suddenly they're running it back mid.
He thought it was nap time, but now it's time for the call of the Ornn. Horn goes in, picks up a kill for himself, but Zoom is a madman, jumps back in underneath the turret, going back once again to lock down Balan, but JD gonna trade 1-for-1.
Everyone needs to calm down a little bit. Ultimately, JD are going to be the big victors here because they break the mid lane tower at 14 minutes in the game before any other structure has gone down. It gives them so much control over the map naturally because mid lane is the primary pivot point, but more importantly, it's a Zoe that's now unlocked. That you have that huge pivot point in the mid lane with a champion that has long range poke, assassination, and choke point CC control with her Drowsy Bubble.
And on top of that, gives them a 2,000 gold lead over Invictus Gaming, which is a nice lead to have 15 minutes into this match. It's going to help them with some of their item breakpoints. Zoom's still going to be looking for his first completed item. Clid's picking up those support-based items that we saw from Olaf from the last season, Aegis. It's going to be the second item that he picks up here. Luden's already complete for Zoe, and Loken building towards the Essence Reaver. Already completed here. This is the changed Essence Reaver on patch 8.11.
Still doesn't feel as good on Xayah as it does someone like Lucian. I'm sure everyone's seen Lucian running around their solo queue games just doing massive amounts of rotation damage because of how Essence Reaver allows him to work off of his calling and then immediately go through all of his abilities a bazillion times. Xayah, still a bit more standard in terms of how she's going to build, but feels good nonetheless.
It is nice to have. Not the best sign for Xayah, whereas Ning, he thought it was a nap time here for Oscar.
Ning's had a weird series is what I'm going to say. That's, I believe, the third time that he's just kind of taken an engagement where I don't know if he thought he was going to do a lot more damage or he just expected the opponent to watch him, but he's kind of gone face first into certain death a few too many times than we expect for a jungler of the caliber of Ning.
But it was a good guess coming out from Yakao as well, predicting that people would be in that rush. He was greeted with a nice and lovely present from Ning, jumping over to give them the kill. The follow-through from Rookie as well. IG also lost the mid-lane turret, lost another pick onto Duke when they dived the turret there too. But now JD are going to try and push for more advantages. Lumao jumps away, gets away from multiple crowd control and engages from Invictus Gaming.
And what they're doing is they're prepping the mid lane, and so now Yagao, since he's cleaned up the CS, can also start rotating down. JD have made it very clear to Invictus Gaming that bot tower is going to fall. They're going to force the issue, take everything that they can from the jungle, and this is kind of the turning point for IG. If they continue to give ground here, where do they decide to draw the line in the sand?
They don't need to be sneaky about it anymore. Last time we saw them trying to move towards the bottom side of the map, they made sure to place down the control wards, swept away every ward that Invictus Gaming had in their side of the jungle. Now with this goal lead and with a 3-1-1 Ola, they're just brute forcing their way towards these objectives. We're not brute forcing to take them down just yet.
But it's still the control. The fact of the matter is that the dragon is spawning in 6 seconds and it's an ocean dragon. So you have to think if maybe this was Infernal, something that the LPL tends to fight over a little bit more, that maybe they would have been a bit more ham-fisted, or excuse me, Invictus Gaming would have been a bit more ham-fisted about kind of, you know, standing their ground. But seeing that it's an ocean, they just kind of give it away and say, no, we will live to fight another day.
But they don't have to. They don't even have to fight for that bottom lane outer turret. Yes, they could have gone for a dive, try and pick up a team fight with that objective, but they take the less risky play and just let the bottom lane push it down naturally. They get an Ocean Dragon for themselves. They're now 2-5 on the scoreboard in favor of JD Gaming, and they've got a 3,000 gold advantage.
It's because Invictus Gaming understand that they don't want to sink themselves before they actually have the opportunity or the win condition to fight. And a lot of it is on Jackie Love on your screen right here. You know, frankly, he fumbled the level 1 massively. Him and Baolan are very responsible for IG continuing to kind of sack these objectives because you're waiting on the breakpoints from Ezreal. He's got his Muramana, he needs to have it stacked, and he's only been just sitting on the Sheen. Once he has those items, then Invictus Gaming are going to come back alive. And until then, what can JD take away from IG to try to race in front of them?
I'm also curious to see which Sheen item Jackie Love is going to build towards, because you can go towards Iceborne Gauntlet or the Trinity Force. In this case, up against an Olaf as well as a Mundo, two champions are going to chase you down no matter what. Might be more effective to go towards the Trinity Force, but we'll have to see what he builds towards later on. IG still trying to set up for a pick against Yakao in that mid lane brush, but Yakao playing it very patiently. Every single time checking the brush, making sure no one's there before he pushes out this wave deeper into IG's territory.
He's just the primary point of control, and it's about how Mao and Clid are moving around Yagao. He's making sure that the wave is constantly pushed, that he's scouting for vision with his bubbles, and allowing Clid to move in deeper and try to press the vision forward. You can see that they've got a great neutral line of vision controlling both the bottom side and top side of River, but you can see Rakan and Clid, they keep stepping into IG's jungle, and they're like, can we go yet? We want to place these deep wards. We want to start getting behind this top tier tower and force more of these objectives down while Jackie Love is still between item breakpoints.
And JD are trying to abuse that fact right now, moving more members towards top side of map, allowing Zoom to take down a turret for himself. Gold has been buffed for individual structures, not going to be as dominant globally, but Zoom will pick up 350 gold for himself, and that's every single outer turret being broken down by JDG. Where do we see them attack next? Because this is normally where a lot of the newer teams in the LPL historically have faltered. JD, not so much a newer team anymore, but they have to choose an objective to attack next.
And it's, are JD going to die on the same cross that they die every single time? Because it's the Baron. Baron changes have gone through. They've got control of the area. As long as they play their waves correctly, have Invictus Gaming forced in, and still have the item breakpoints or the item advantages over IG, maybe they can start to set up and try to find picks around this. But Yagao needs to be the guy in the area. And when JD have fumbled this objective before, it's because with their Zoe compositions, they didn't have Yagao playing around the Baron pit, looking to make those cheeky picks over walls.
If they can make those picks later on against Invictus Gaming, it should allow them to set up for that Baron. But again, if history repeats itself, it's not going to look good for them. IG are still trying to maintain as much control around the objective as they possibly can. JD have moved their top laner down into the bottom lane, so Zoom will continue split pushing against this. Rookie is trying to see if he can go for a flank.
Yeah, he wants to fight because they know that they have a numbers advantage in this area. Here they go.
On hits Loken with the horn, but uses the ultimate nice and early. Lumao even jumping away. JD play it incredibly safe.
But you can tell how desperate Invictus Gaming are. They understand what they want. They pinged the Baron multiple times. They know that this is the objective that JD are trying to move into, but JD have learned from their spring mistakes. They didn't force the matter. They disengaged from a key ultimate in the Ornn ultimate. They made sure that Zoom has the wave press forward. It's Rookie who has to answer him. And now they just continue to play this Baron dance. And it's no longer, you know, like the Harlem Shake where you just don't want to see it anymore. It's much more a controlled waltz or tango. This is a much better kind of Baron setup or wave control from JD than we've ever seen before.
And JD already had a 4,000 gold lead before they made the decision to disengage, back away from IG, who were trying to force a fight. Now, Dr. Mundo's been able to get good chip damage onto that bottom lane inner turret. There was a banner of command being used by Clear to help with that push, and that could fall down if IG tried to devote Duke into a different lane.
But time's up, Fish, because the Trinity Force has been completed. Jakilov now has his 2 items, and so Invictus Gaming are just going to get more brazen and more confident with the ability to make these engages.
That's the stream of Rapid Fire Cannon, not the biggest of spikes for Xayah anymore. We'll be looking towards an Infinity Edge shortly. Ning going to try and go for the engage, trying to lock down. Yakal takes a lot of damage, forced to use the Zhonyas. Yakal needs to try and disengage from this fight. The rest of JDG are trying to get into the fight as well. Loka going to join with his own teleport. Zoom now leading the charge. Rookie incredibly low. Logan trying to lead up this charge, but can't find access. Flashes over the pin, gets top of Rookie. Zoom gets that kill. IG 4 members now trying to disengage. Jackie Love, Arcane shifting away from Deja, backing off. Zoom still chasing through. He's an absolute madman at the moment. Yakal wants to put Ning to sleep. It's left, right. Good night time for Ning. Yakal gets the execution. 2 picks for JDG.
And they did that in a 4v5. Look at where Olaf is on your map. He was sitting in base practically the entire fight, is now walking full health, stacked up, ready for this Baron. And JD, they understood what happened in Spring. They have capitalized and fixed their Baron mistakes, and they shut out Invictus Gaming around this Baron pit and take it.
IG only going to devote, they're not going to devote anyone towards this Baron either. Picked up by JDG. IG push for a mid lane out of turret, but that's all they get. JD break open the game with that team fight. Now they have a 6,000 goal lead over IG with 3.5 minutes of Baron buff to work with.
Kind of tried to twist Invictus Gaming's arm in game number 1 with a weird comp back to standard, and JD playing it clean, and this is what they are good at. Now, a lot of this was a very prolonged fight, playing around vision. Invictus Gaming not quite having all of the wards that they needed to spot out this teleport as Loken's going to join the back of the fight, but also just not synced up with Ning. The fact that he's forced to flash defensively, Rookie then flashes offensively, Zoom then comes in, we get to see the new Mundo in all of his glory, and he basically just runs a train on IG. Nothing can stop Mundo. He separated the fight, and then Duke is now 2v1 by himself and tanking for no one.
Even Logan flashing aggressively over the Lord to pick
It's
up the
such
kill.
a mess of a fight.
Messy fight, but JD play it to perfection the best they could. Picking up a Baron buff at the back of that as well, now pushing for mid lane inner turret.
The frank matter of it is that JD are not the strongest team fighters in the LPL, but frankly, neither are Invictus Gaming. One of the biggest criticisms that we had for IG is comparatively to the other LPL teams, and we are the team fighting region, IG have always been weak in this regard, and you can see it right there. The preparation, the execution, the setup, that even a team like JD, who are also weak in team fighting, were able to exploit.
And we compared JD to the likes of EDG earlier in the sense that they like to set up, but EDG set up so they can go for a big team fight. JD, they're more of, let's set up so we can go for a skirmish or a pick maybe, and then take objectives from that, which is what they tried to do there. Did turn into a team fight, they had the gold lead to deal with that. And IG, we criticized them before against the exact same team, Edward Gaming, where they were 10,000 gold ahead during the regular split, and they lost a team fight against EDG 5-on-5, a fight that they started as well. So we criticized them for the team fighting. Prowess, I can't really say. Their inability to team fight from time to time, still a very strong team, but when they can't be this aggressive squad, when they're not the attackers in the game, it seems like it's a little bit difficult for Invictus Gaming. They're up against a squad of JD, sieging up mid lane inhibitor turret, bottom lane inhibitor turret, top lane waves pushing and slowly as well. Zoom, he's going to take this down by himself.
And I wish we had more time to kind of talk about the intricacies of what makes a good team fighting team versus a poor team fighting team, but I have a feeling everything's about to explode because JD are continuing to push it, and here comes the bounce house.
IG, they try to force a fight. Yakal takes some damage, but Zonya's going to keep him alive at half health. Rookie, he's already gone, obliterated at the start of this match. Logan even moving forward. IG trying to get to the backlines, but Yakal stays alive again, locked down by Nick. How is Zoe still alive? It seems impossible, but Yakal somehow done it. IG only have their top laner left alive, and not anymore. Logan gets the final kill. The ace for JD. They're going to equalize this game.
And fancy footwork from Yagao. I'm glad that we got to see it on motion because part of the reason why Invictus Gaming failed to teamfight appropriately is because they don't hit key members with key abilities. Yagao dodged the Orin ultimate, sidestepped all of these abilities, stayed alive the entire fight, and keep JD alive in this series.
And he said JD are trying to rebuild their team, rebrand their team, and become the best they could possibly be. A win over Invictus Gaming in this best of 3 series would be a great start. IG, it could be the curse of their first game repeating itself here. They lost against RNG during game 1 of Spring Split, and now opening match against JD, they're going to match point.
Stock standard compositions from both teams. You wouldn't know that this was 8-11 if you looked at it. And JD just frankly were the cleaner team. They played around the objectives better. It was Jackie Love and Balan that I feel really snowballed everything out of control initially on that poor level 1. It bled into Ning's jungle. They lost control of the bottom side of the map. Objectives started falling. The gold lead started snowballing. And then it turned towards the Baron.
We got to see Zoom get a bit more control of his lane as well. The gameplay against Aatrox didn't work out too well for Zoom. Duke was able to shut him down, lock him down underneath a couple of his turrets. This time, tank against tank, Zoom was incredibly comfortable and was able to take it to Duke in the top lane.
Yeah, and it's the ability for JD to recognize and capitalize on what happened in game number 1. You know, they lost control of their side lanes. They didn't have winning lane matchups. They basically just got their shit kicked in by Invictus Gaming, but they've now fixed it. Back to the drawing board, tank versus tank matchup, prioritize the Xayah and Rakan in the bot lane to make sure that they had the pushing lane, and suddenly they find so much success. So again, the fingerprint of Coach Ohm very clear on JD Gaming.
And you said that JD had to change a couple of things about their champion select from game number 1. I expected a couple of champs to be changed here and there, and still some of the kitchen sink being thrown in by both teams, but both rosters just say, you know what, we're not going to adhere to this 8.11 Clown Fiesta. We're going back to standard. And did you expect that coming out there? Because it's completely different.
Well, I expected that JD Gaming might try to go and experiment a little bit more, but I'm glad that they can taste that they can win this series. If you're going to hit IG, you hit him now.
They'll be trying to take this one down as they go to match point. For now, let's send it back to the analyst desk.
Thank you so much, Fish. And guys, I want to open up with this statement. Was that the real start of this series, yes or no?
No. No, I think the experiment counts. It's 8.11. You can't point that out, but we have to welcome Jingdong. I have to apologize to you guys. I thought you guys couldn't lane with IG. I was wrong. Welcome to Laning Kingdom for both teams.
And also, you can't rewrite history. Game 1 happened, all right? Calm yourself. I will say, though, you're right about the whole Lane Kingdom thing. We talked about it going into the set, about what are JD good at. Like, what is their identity? Are they team fighting? Are they strong in lanes? And while their composition here really worked well for them in the laning phase, they immediately buffed up their bottom lane. So that was the first thing that we really wanted to see, was their bottom lane having a stronger 2v2 and push. They got that for themselves. Same thing happened mid lane and top lane. So it felt like every lane was incredibly good when it came to lane matchups, and they played well to those lane match, immediately pushing the Ezreal bottom lane from Baolan and Jackie Love around.
Exactly. If we look at the compositions right here, I know, Clement, you were talking to me and you were saying that JD's composition very reliant on certain conditions. It felt like those conditions were met, though, given that they won the game.
Exactly. There's 2 big points from both sides, and I think both sides, they need to have a good jungle. If you look at IG, they lack damage outside of Camille. The Camille really needs to get that Triforce going on early in the game. Ezreal has been nerfed quite a bit, and for Jingdong, they actually need Zoe and Olaf to snowball. If that doesn't snowball, they lose.
I would say just from the JD perspective, because I know that FLICKR came into the game and she mentioned something that was really important, which is how Mundo played out this later portions of the game, right? Mundo works very well because while there's a lot of poke coming on the side, or at least consistent damage coming inside in Invictus Gaming, he is great for pushing forward, allowing space for the mage, specifically the poke damage from Zoe, to kind of roam through and do quite well for herself. So it was nice to see. I mentioned the laning phase presence coming out of JD, but their team fighting, or at least how it revolved around Mundo just walking in, was really nice to see, and it worked out well for them.
So where was this game won or lost? Because we're talking about the laning phase, but you're absolutely right. When I was looking at those fights, when we saw that massive Baron fight as well, it definitely seemed like JD just had the upper hand, regardless of it. Even though they had the advantage, regardless of that, it felt like even if they were on even footing, we still would have had the same result.
Yeah, immediately I will say that where it started was from the invades coming through from Clid, the ganks coming through from Clid, because for me, spotlight's on Clid. Clid as a jungler, last split, performed poorly. I'm just going to say overall he performed poorly. Gold difference at 10 minutes was actually incredibly low, last in the league, or at least from jungler side. So before the 10, or at least after the 10-minute mark, it's usually JD coming in team fights. If Clid's on the team and he would do quite well from them, he was fed this game. Early on, he had so many kills to his name, so much gold value to his name. So gank bottom lane and a skirmish in the mid lane where he was accruing a lot of kills for himself. He was the primary focus, and he was able to at least push the lead and push it into a snowball.
That's the deal breaker in this meta. If you have control of the mid jungle, there's so little that the enemy team can actually do. They will bleed out in terms of experience and gold, and that just helped Jingdong snowball all the way. The secondary player I would mention would have been Ruma for that bot lane win like Frost was talking about. And the special thing he actually did was he actually leveled E on level 1, and he did that with fleet footwork so they could move ahead and surprise Jackie Love. Going for the Tormented Soil is actually standard for the Morgana, but Jackie Love was caught off surprise. He hadn't seen that cheese coming from Luma.
100%. Well played by the bottom lane, and as you were saying, lane kingdom from every lane individually. And before we get straight too far away from the mid lane, it will be Yagao actually taking our MVP for this one as well, actually getting the advantage in the mid lane. And you know, we were actually saying this before this series as well, that you have to be looking towards the mid laners. Rookie obviously going to be a major part of the team for Invictus Gaming, as is Mashai. They're playing without one of those members today, but Yagao equally as important for JD.
Yeah, in those team fights were incredible from Yagao. We saw the Zhonya's coming through because he was the primary focus from Invictus Gaming, and he was constantly saving himself, and the team was helping him out. I'd say blue side jungle, 22 minutes into the game. You know, if you're a YouTube viewer, turn that back because that was beautiful to watch, just to see when Mundo came back into the fight. That's when Zoe re-entered the fight. Sleepy Trouble Bubbles all around, being able to catch out the Camille as well. I'm going to slap you in the face, apparently. So really well played in a lot of these team fights coming out of Zoe.
But here's the rub, because we saw this second game and we went back to old school. You were predicting new school. Eventually we got the old school coming out from JD. But now that we've seen this now go to 1-1, and it seems like if you're playing on an even playing field, if JD is playing old school and Invictus Gaming is playing old school, you know what I'm about to say. Does JD take this series? Yes or no, Clement?
Ooh, I actually think that JD will, just because of the synergy they have between jungle and mid. And this is something IG has always been lacking. Ning, while good with other parts of the map, has always been very suspect with Rookie in terms of the 2v2. And we saw this happen multiple times just today with Ning overstepping and getting himself killed.
And for me, it comes to the pick ban. A lot of it came down to the fact that this time around, JD had lane priority, and they were making use of it. And the Zoe came through, and I know Zoe is a pick that you would want to see what counter pick we see from it. Yasuo's been getting banned repeatedly, so I want to see if Invictus Gaming decide to ban out the Zoe or find another counter pick that isn't the Yasuo.
So given that JD have the advantage in pick and bans, you think they'll take it?
I think Invictus Gaming will take it this time around. So I think they'll have the response. I'm not too sure. I think it'll be the Karma mid going up against it. There are still a few answers for Zoe.
Clement, final thoughts before we go to break.
Well, they better ban the Zoe because Yagao still has the highest record of damage share for a single game at 58.2% on Zoe. That is no joke. He is the most dangerous Zoe we have in the LPL.
All right, well, there you have it. It seems like the Death Thinks JD is going to take this 2-1. We'll see if that actually happens in reality. We are going to take a quick break. When we get back, we'll be in our final game between Invictus Gaming and JD Gaming.